Traditional Sweet Recipes from Malta Volume 2, soon available at www.traditionalmaltesesweets.com. Traditional Sweet Recipes, creating a small slice of Malta that feels like home.
Merħba lura fil-programm Maltese DownUnder. Il-mistidna li jmiss hija Maltija tat-tielet ġenerazzjoni fl-Awstralja li taħdem fil-qasam tal-ambjent marittimu. F'din intervista ma' Mark Avellino, Charlene Trestrail titkellem dwar il-ħidma tagħha f'dan il-qasam.
Charlene, your LinkedIn profile sort of says that you're an environmental toxicologist. So I read that and I thought, okay, what is this? You know, so it sounds very CSI. Can you fill us in on a little bit on what it's all about?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it does sound very CSI. The reality perhaps is not quite as exciting, but it is still very important. So an environmental toxicologist essentially looks at the effects of chemicals on the environment. So we use a lot of chemicals every day in our house, in our agriculture, in manufacturing, and they're important chemicals that help us get the job done. But sometimes they have unintended consequences for the environment. So they might accidentally kill things once they get into a river system, or they might build up in the plants and animals that we eat. So my job as an environmental toxicologist is to work out what are the effects of these chemicals and what are the safe limits that we can use and release into the environment to avoid those unintended consequences.
So how did you even start to get interested in this sort of field of study or field of research, I guess? You know?
I got there through a very long pathway. So as an undergraduate, I was very interested in the environment and in particular in the marine environment. So I loved the ocean, I loved all the animals in it, and that's what I majored in when I did my undergraduate degree. But then I started working, and after a little while I felt that I wasn't quite in the right field. I wanted to get back to science, and I wanted to find an area with real-world problems. So I am very driven by trying to find solutions to real-world problems that we encounter. And I sort of stumbled on the field of environmental toxicology just by accident, just researching academics and seeing what was out there. And as soon as I learnt more about it and learnt what environmental toxicology was all about, I thought, this is the field for me. I can see that there is a problem that we need to solve, and I was really motivated to use my skills and my knowledge to try and fix those problems that we encounter. So
you know, this sounds like you're working in a very real-world type of environment.
Yeah.
So was that part of what informed your period in Fiji?
Fiji actually came before that, so I think it was part of leading me towards that that endpoint of environmental toxicology. So Fiji was all about working with a small non-government organisation over there. I was part of the Australian volunteer program, and I was placed with this organisation to help them monitor and evaluate their environmental rehabilitation programs.
So, you know, with this work that you are doing, how integrated is it within sort of government departments and working with government to sort of implement some of the findings?
Well, on the whole, environmental toxicologists, their research feeds straight back into government regulations. So without environmental toxicologists, you don't know what levels of pollutants you can release or what levels of chemicals you can use without, you know, getting into these negative consequences. So the work we do helps inform government regulations, and we can start to manage our use and our manufacture to protect the wider environment. I'm working in a field of quite a new toxicant, so I look at microplastics, which has just really hit the environmental stage in the last couple of years. But it's got a lot of public interest at the moment, and so I'm hoping that my research will feed into government regulation about our plastic use and our plastic manufacture in the future.
So is that very much about things like plastic bottles and the way that the impact of that on the environment?
Absolutely. So all the plastic we use will eventually break down into very small pieces of plastic called microplastics, and you can't always see them, but they are still out there in the environment. So not only large things like plastic bags bags and plastic bottles, we sometimes deliberately manufacture microplastics for use in facial scrubs or for use in our dishwashing tablets. And those microplastics go straight down the drain through our wastewater treatment facilities and out into the ocean. So all the plastic we use will eventually make microplastics, and we know that's quite a worrying thing because lots of marine animals eat microplastics.
So then inadvertently it gets into the food chain and we're recycling it around the whole, I guess, life cycle for ourselves, including animals as well.
Absolutely, yeah. There's research that's just come out to show a lot of shellfish, so oysters and mussels, are full of microplastic, and we eat those things, but at the moment we don't really know what it means to have a microplastic inside your body. We're not sure what the effects are. It could be neutral, there might be no effect, or it could be a negative effect. We just don't know at the moment.
U inkomplu nitkellmu ma' Charlene Trestrail, xjentista ta' nisel Malti li taħdem fil-qasam tal-ambjent marittimu. Minkejja li Charlene hija Maltija tat-tielet ġenerazzjoni fl-Awstralja, xorta għandha rabta speċjali mal-eruq Maltin tagħha.
Just a little bit about yourself. So, you know, you're third generation Maltese.
I am.
And one of the things that you told us that you studied up in Canberra, and during that period you felt a bit disconnected from the Maltese community, I guess, from all the Maltese culture. At what point when you were up in Canberra, what were the things that you kind of found you yearned for?
Oh, that's a good question. So I am third generation Maltese, but I was raised for a lot of my young years by my nana and nanu. And so I think my connection to my Maltese culture and heritage is perhaps a bit stronger than other third generation Maltese people might have. So when I went to Canberra, I was doing a little bit of study, and I was also working there at the same time. And I felt, quite surprisingly, I felt that I was missing that connection. So I missed even just walking down the street and going to the shops and hearing people speak in other languages or catching snippets of a Maltese conversation. I missed feeling that I was part of a wider community. And I also missed the food. So my nana's cooking I missed in particular. And I remember I would drive down for visits to Melbourne, and nana would bulk buy boxes of kidney for me. And I would put all these boxes of kidney into my boot and then have to ration them out over the next couple of months in Canberra. It was a special treat. Shall I have a kidney today? Because you didn't want to use them up too quickly. So I think I missed a combination of things, but it was mostly feeling like I was part of something a bit bigger than myself. I missed feeling like I was part of another community, and I wasn't expecting that, because I think until I moved, I don't think I really appreciated my Maltese connection. I think I probably just took it for granted, especially because here in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, lots of people come from different cultural backgrounds, and so it was just something that everyone had. And then when I went to Canberra, I realised, oh, actually it's not something that everybody has, and I've actually got something quite special. So it took that move before I really realised that I have this deep connection that I wasn't aware of. Yeah.
So so obviously you've returned back to Melbourne, and you're back home now. How did being away from all that connection to Maltese sort of make you connect back into it when you got back?
It's motivated me to connect and be a bit more active in the community. So one of the first things I did when I came back was I enrolled in Maltese language classes. So I've done a beginner's course in that, and I now progress at my own pace using apps and books and CDs. So I hope that one day I will be fluent. It is slow going, but I suppose I should practice a little bit more with my nana. So that's one thing. I'd like to learn the language, but I would also like to meet other young Maltese Australians like myself. So I'm looking for events run by local Maltese organisations to participate in. And I would like to learn some Maltese cooking. So I am not the world's greatest cook, but I think I should start to learn those recipes and get a handle on those kind of things.
And you know, I think through food, that's the best way of learning sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely,
So,
we all connect through food, and when I do get my hands on something tasty like a figolla, I take it to uni and I share it with my colleagues so that they can have a little bit of something Maltese. Yeah.
It'd be almost worthwhile finding an internship or something in Malta that you could do.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing, and it would tick so many boxes.
Yeah.
And Malta's got this completely different marine habitat from Australia, so it would be interesting for me to go and see how they manage their marine resources and their chemicals and things like that. Definitely.
Obviously, the marine biology in Malta, you know, has the impact of the rest of Europe around it as well. It's completely isolated. So environmentally, they've probably got quite different concerns to what we've got here.
I think so. I think Australia's quite lucky in that we have a lot of ocean around us and we don't necessarily have to share those resources with neighbouring countries. But because Malta is so central in the Mediterranean and it does have a lot of countries around it, I think there's a lot more resource sharing and a lot more shared management policies of things like fisheries and waste disposal and that kind of thing. So it's probably a different ballgame in Malta.
When you were in Fiji, you worked on a particular project which had a fair bit of relevance to Australia. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So in Fiji, the non-government organisation that I was working with worked to rehabilitate coral reefs and nearby mangrove areas. In Fiji, the development has happened at such a fast pace, and particularly the tourist industry has increased at such a fast pace that these environments have really been hit quite hard, and they're not at the level that they used to be and the level that the Fijian people would like them to be. So we were working to find programs to rehabilitate those areas. It involved things like replanting mangrove areas and trying a little bit of coral farming as well to try and bring coral back slowly into areas that could support it again. So I was helping that organisation design these activities and then take part in actually carrying them out. But most importantly, we focused on monitoring and evaluating those effects and whether our activities were successful or not as well. So that's quite relevant to any country actually that has not just a coral reef, but any degraded environment. This process of finding out how you can bring the environment back to restore it and then monitoring whether you're having any success or whether you need to change those activities. So it's relevant to pretty much anywhere, really.
So you know, when you hear all the doubters in the media, you know, say, oh, it's not human, there's no impact from humans and stuff, but how much do you think there is that combination of environmental due to, I guess, our lack of concern about what we do to the environment with these sort of...
I think that human activities have a huge impact on the environment, and there's certainly evidence that's the case. So I think the important thing to remember is that with every environment, it's almost a death by 1,000 cuts. So if we look at coral reefs, it isn't just the fact that the oceans are getting warmer with climate change. It can be the fact that the mangrove forest has died, so there's now more runoff from the land, and the coral doesn't like that. Or the wastewater treatment facility isn't at a good enough standard, so there's too much nutrients coming in from wastewater, or there's pollution, or there's overfishing. And these are all linked straight back to human activities. And I think it's important to realise that we might think our one personal activity doesn't have that much of an effect. But you have to remember that it's many activities over many people affecting the shared environment. And I think we are the source of a lot of environmental degradation, but we are also the source of the hope for the future. I think we have unlimited potential to change our behaviour and to change our practices, and when we work together, we achieve wonderful things. So I think that at the moment, marine environments and coral reefs in particular are doing it very, very tough. But I do believe that if we work together and change our practices, we can bring these environments back. They won't be lost.
U dik l-intervista twassalna fit-tmiem programm ieħor ta' Maltese DownUnder. Filwaqt li nirringrazzjakom tal-attenzjoni tagħkom infakkarkom li tistgħu tagħmlu kuntatt magħna permezz tal-email maltesetv@gmail.com kif ukoll permezz tal-paġna tagħna fuq Facebook. Jiena Marlene nixtieqilkom is-saħħa u nagħtikom appuntamenti oħra bħallum ġimgħa fl-istess ħin. Maltese DownUnder thanks the Malta Tourism Authority, Mayfield's Business Advisors, MPD Steak Kitchen, Maltese Pastizzi Bar and Restaurant, First National Borg & Associates, Maltese Original Pastizzi Company, Smartline and our bronze sponsors.